Welcome back, everyone, to Purple Noon, a podcast. I'm Stephanie Conti, and I am here with the incomparable. You saw how I rolled that R? Sorry. Incomparable Savanna Lanausse.
Top of the morning, guys.
Top of the morning to ya. There was no username or nickname in this intro, because it would be rude. With the movie we're talking about, it'd be rude to just be giving each other nicknames of the characters from this film. But before we get into the review, how are you doing, Savanna? And what have you been watching lately?
I'm good. I started Ozark on Netflix.
How is it? I hear there's a lot of hype behind it. I've only seen the first episode.
So I like it. It's not the best show I've ever seen. I'm hoping it picks up. But it's good. It's getting there for me. What about you?
Nice. Let's see. I watch a lot of YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube in my spare time. Really just dumb, low IQ stuff. Like, I usually save my brain capacity for the movies that we watch, like I usually save that. And then the other days it's just like I literally watched a video today called Pee Sauna. So that's where my brain is at these days. But yeah, other than that, I was watching Naruto. I have made the executive decision, though, that I will, starting next week, I will get into season 3 of Twin Peaks.
Ooh.
It's time.
I finished it all, and my brain is still scrambled.
So
let me know what you think of that.
I gave it a shot in 2017, but I tried watching it with my parents, and they were, they don't like David Lynch stuff. And I think my dad never even saw the first 2 seasons. So like within the first 10 minutes, he's like, I don't know what's going on. And he actually watched the full show. And he's like, it was okay, but I still don't understand a single thing because I never watched the first 2 seasons.
I don't understand a lot either. Like there's 2 things I understood out of the whole season of season 3.
But in between YouTube and wanting to start Twin Peaks, Savannah got me her and her husband for my birthday. I got 2 Twin Peaks books, and I have been reading The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer. And literally after the first passage, if you know anything about Twin Peaks, like I was reading it at like 1 a.m. and then I had to put the book down immediately because the first passage ends with like, I hope Bob doesn't visit me. And I'm like, oh my God, I know where this is going. It's a dark read so far, but it adds more severity to what Twin Peaks was.
When I picked up the book for Steph, I kind of skimmed through it. You have to tell me when you get to the part I'm thinking of, because there's an element of the book that is really, really makes the situation like dire.
Okay, but did you like get like halfway?
No, it was like I was skimming through it, so like I didn't read very much, but my eyes kind of fell on this part. I think it's towards the end of the book.
Did you read the whole book?
I didn't. No. Like I was like flipping through it when I first got it.
You were skimming.
Yeah, I didn't read it. I was just kind of like, okay, let me see like if there's anything cool I can like get her excited about. And I saw it and I was just like, ooh. So
crazy. But yeah, like I have read a few parts and I'm like, oh, is this going to turn into anything more later on? But we'll see. But other than that, that's what I've been doing in between YouTubing and reviewing and physics. Physics ain't that fun, but whatever. You got to do what you got to do sometimes, Mm-hmm. So today we're going to be talking about a movie called Hunger. And to give you a little introduction of this film, and which, by the way, so we are not Irish. No. We have never been in Ireland, nor have any Irish studies underneath our belt. And I say this because, we're going to talk about the plot because it is based off a true story. And I've done a nice amount of research on things, but obviously because I also didn't live in that time frame, because I wasn't there, I can only imagine some things I might say out of context, or, we might say out of context, or, we might not get necessarily or understand properly as we should. But I just want to put that as a disclaimer. And if you're Irish, or for some reason you have Irish studies underneath your belt, anything that we say or do, like, correct it down below. Give us more info. Give us the knowledge that we need. Yeah. Because I don't know about you, but Savanna, did you look up any of the stuff? Because I had a hard time interpreting, like, what was going on at the time in Ireland.
I did, and you actually cleared up some things for me as well. I asked you about some things. I didn't understand the beginning of the movie. We'll get into that because the movie starts off with just protests immediately. You're not kind of into it, so I was just like, all right, what happened? So I did kind of figure out, okay, like, this is the background, and then you gave me some useful information as well. Do you want to tell everybody the background of everything, or should we just get into the plot?
I'm going to talk about the plot first, because then we can break down into Bobby Sands and everything like that. Okay. So it's a film called Hunger, came out in 2008. It's directed by Steve McQueen, and it is about an Irish Republican. Bobby Sands leads the inmates of Northern Irish prison in a hunger strike. So it stars, so you don't see Bobby Sands, the character Bobby Sands, until after like 24 minutes into the movie. But it stars Stuart Graham, Lane Meghaw, Brian Milligan, Liam McMahon, I'm sorry, Karen Hassan, and Bobby Sands is portrayed by the legendary Michael Fassbender. So first off, before we get into any of the politics, background, acting, story, everything, Savanna, this was your first time watching this movie, correct?
It was.
What did you think of the movie?
So I'm actually very surprised because I haven't heard a lot about the movie before you recommended it. Like, I've heard almost nothing about the movie. So it definitely missed my radar, and it might have missed a lot of other people's radar. I was very surprised how graphic it was. And I think it was necessary, number one. Like, especially when you're talking about all the things these men had to go through. Mm-hmm. So I appreciated a lot of things about the film, how graphic it was. There's an awesome scene with the priest. It's actually what the movie, I think, is known for. That was pretty great. Michael Fassbender is superb. The dedication. And I just think the story is very timeless. Obviously, it happened, and it's something we all should learn about. It's history in a way. But I do think you could show this movie 30, 40 years from now, and it's going to have some context still. It's going to be just as important. So I really, some things were hard to look at, but I did really think the movie was good. What about you?
Yeah, so I had discovered this movie when I was, because one of, like, an underrated movie that I love is the Stanford Prison Experiment. So this movie came up in a lineup of recommendations after watching that movie. Oh, sorry, I keep burping. But so I saw, they were like, oh, Hunger. And I'm like, Fassbender, I've never heard of this. And I watched, and when I saw it was in the Criterion Collection too, I was like, oh, fantastic. This works out perfectly. And then I watched the movie and I was like, why is no one talking about this? I think not only for the historical context, but the scene, there's one significant scene where Bobby Sands is talking to the priest. But then also the transformation that Michael Fassbender goes through, like in terms of like celebrity weight loss, weight gain, like those crazy transformations, we always hear what? Christian Bale, Tom Hanks. I had never heard once anyone mention Fassbender, which is crazy because after seeing all those other celebrity, like crazy transformations, like even something like Dallas Buyers Club, I think this is probably still, in my opinion, like one of the most jarring.
I don't know how jarring he was okay.
Yeah.
Just so by the way he looked.
It was, I was just so shocked. I'm like, everyone talks about like Dallas Buyers Club, like I said, all those examples, but I'd never heard anyone mention this before. And I think this is literally the most extreme transformation I've seen in terms of an actor and weight loss. So before we get into all of that, so yeah, Savanna, so the way that this film starts, the first 20 minutes before, like I said, Bobby Sands is even introduced. We see this young prisoner who is being taken in, and he's put into a cell. And of course, that is not a pretty cell. It is not any regular, average old cell. It is a cell where feces has been taken and is smeared all over the wall. So, yeah. Savanna, where was the... What was your question? Or confusion? Did you say you had confusion about this first 20 minutes?
The movie throws you into the chaos. So it doesn't really explain what's going on. This man is thrown into, and he is beaten, pretty much. It's very sad. And then he's thrown into this room with this other man who's has a beard. He just looks very, like, unkempt.
Feral. They all looked feral.
Yeah, and there's just... The room is disgusting, by the way. Like, they're, like, playing with their food. They're doing something with their food. And they're, like you said, there's stuff all over the wall. And I'm just kind of like, okay, what led them to do this?
So for some historical context, even though the story centers around majority Bobby Sands, so during this time, a lot of the people that you see in the prisons are known as IRA supporters or militants, and it was the Irish Republican Army. And in their prison, so they had, I believe it was a special prison held for people who were a part of the IRA. And they called it the H blocks. And it was to a point where the people, these protesters who had their own opinions and stuff, almost like a different view on a political party, were considered to be political prisoners for their ideology, which also, so they did, and I'm not saying like all these guys were peaceful protesting, like, no, Bobby Sands was arrested for possession of a gun. They did a lot of makeshift bombs. There was, a lot of ugly on both sides.
Yeah.
But they were not given any rights. And typically with like political protesters, it's almost like, if I were to make a comparison, it would be like how almost we would treat terrorists in terms of in a prison system. Right. Almost like an interrogation. Whereas these guys, they're not doing an interrogation. They're just serving time. They've already been convicted of their crimes and they're serving time in an inhumane system where they are in certain ways to protest and everything, like they are beaten. And one of the things in the beginning is that you see this officer like wash his knuckles like 8 times. And so at first it's just like, oh, like why is he washing his hands so often? Like we really don't get a good context of him until we realize that once Bobby Sands is introduced, that he's actually washing his bruised up bloody knuckles from hitting prisoners, from just beating them up.
Dude, it's like straight up abuse at one point. The scene where they do take Bobby Sands and like shave his head and his like skull, like his whole head is bleeding because they're using like a razor and scissors. And it's a very graphic movie, but done purposefully, if that makes sense. It's not just graphic.
Like it has a reason for it to exist. It's not like graphic without no nature. It's to show exactly what happened in its horrific detail that, let's be honest, we would have never seen if it weren't for a movie like this. If we didn't get testimonies and stories from fellow of these like inmates of Bobby Sands. And a movie like this wouldn't have come to life. No one would have seen anything. Like even when you look up Bobby Sands, for those who don't know, so the whole purpose it's called Hunger is because they have a hunger strike.
Yeah.
In reality, Bobby Sands died after 66 days of starving himself.
Yeah.
There is no photos of his death. There is no photos of how he looked or anything. So we can't even imagine what this man looked like just for the sake of protesting for a better cause for prisoners.
Yeah. I think we'll get to, there's a really significant scene on why he does this. I think it's the most important scene in the movie. You know, just going back to the scene where they were like pretty much abused, beaten, bleeding, like just their stuff smeared on the wall. Like, I don't know how these men weren't sick all the time.
I can't, they probably were. And then there's also one scene that I saw too, and I was like, oh my God, if this was how they did it in reality, like so many of them must have been suffering from some sort of illness. So one of the more graphic scenes, there's a part where a very invasive search is done on them, and the officer has a glove. But if you notice, the officer not only never switches his glove when going from person to person,
Ugh.
but he uses his gloves, does a little behind check, and then uses the same gloves to open up their mouths.
Oh my God. I forgot
and
about
that was one of the things I noticed, and I was like, the amount of issues, like the amount of bacteria, like it was just so gross. And the fact that like as soon as the next prisoner came out, he didn't change his glove, and he did the same thing. And it's like, if that was the only part of that scene that was realistic, that would still be inhumane. It's disgusting. It's absolutely revolting.
And think about it. This all happened 40 years ago. This all happened in our parents' generation. This is not that long ago, you know?
Yeah, and I believe all of this too was during a time where, and I absolutely could be wrong, because where am I getting my knowledge from? From the hit show Dairy Girls on Netflix, which takes place during a similar time. But I think it was at the time Ireland was being occupied by England.
I think so, because in the scene with the priest, they did say something about Ireland and there being like issues.
Yeah, because I know I couldn't remember if there was like I had a hard time, and like I said, like there just were no sources that just said it straight. Like it was just like, oh, but the Irish and all of this, and it's like, just was England occupying? That's all I want to know. Like, and I kept looking up all the information. It was just so hard to find straightforward answers. And I mean, I guess in a sense, there really is no straightforward answer when it comes to politics like this. But yeah, like that is what my, and of course, if you are Irish, if you study Ireland, please comment below. Please give us our information that we want and need, because I definitely want to be able to learn from this. Learn about what happened.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So one of the most jarring scenes is when the guard gets killed.
Yeah.
Do you know what happens there? Do you know why that happened? What was that? Because I was confused on what like exactly happened.
I believe, and you're talking about the same guard with the bloody knuckles, right?
Yeah, when he goes to see his mom.
That is probably the doing of the IRA.
Oh.
Because remember, they would sneak messages through the prisons and stuff like that. They would sneak stuff to their girlfriends and to visitors. And one of them might have said, like, this is the officer, find out details. Because the IRA were not, like I said, necessarily peaceful protesters.
Yeah.
Like, this went on, and in the end, it's revealed that not only 9 inmates died from the hunger strike protest, but 16 officers were killed.
Oh my God.
So it was just a lot of ugly on every corner of the situation that this movie revolves around. But yeah, so I'm currently looking up more. I'm trying to figure out, because I try to like do my best to find out more. But so Bobby Sands was arrested for possession of firearms. And normally, look, with a movie like this, you kind of have to give historical context, because it is entirely based on history. Like, and I do not want to misrepresent. I do not want to misconstrue or do anything like that. I don't know if the 2 men in the beginning of the film were any particular members, or if they kind of just represented a collective of members within the IRA prisoners. But and fun fact, apparently since like early 2000, that whole prison system, the H blocks, and it literally looked like just a field of H's. That's why they called it the H blocks. It's been closed since like the early 2000s.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. But Bobby Sands, he was the one who led the hunger strike, and he also was, I think he didn't get into parliament, but he did win a political, let's see. And apparently also Bobby Sands did help plan a 1976 bombing.
Oh, okay.
Of a furniture company store, which was then followed by, and I'm reading it, followed by a gun battle with the Royal Ulster oh my God, what is that word? Constabulary. Don't know what that is, but yeah, so not only was he arrested for possession of a gun, but he had definitely
he did some
bad
stuff.
Intentions.
I think the film does a really good thing about not saying what these men did, though, because there are people out there that are going to basically be like, well, he had a gun and he planned bombing, so maybe he deserved it. And I think the film does a really good job at being like, that doesn't matter, these are people. And they were being straight up abused at some points. And
at the end of the day too, and I'm speaking on behalf of the way America handles crime and the way our criminal system is held. If you are convicted of a crime that deserves death, you get death. But if not, you still are treated like a human being in a prison system. You still have some rights. You still have access to some things. It just depends on what level. It depends on a multitude of things. But it just seemed like because he was given,
you're not allowed to beat anybody. You know what? Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying.
At least with Bobby Sands, even if he wasn't fighting all the time and stuff like that, he went on a hunger strike. And if you look, even without the crap on the wall, even when they weren't throwing up in that weird little corner pile, which I don't even understand that, but they were sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
They were sleeping on the floor. And in order just to it didn't even seem like they had access to basic cleaning, basic, hygiene products or anything. And when when there are several scenes when they're meeting their relatives and everything, and when Bobby Sands meet his parents, they're like, "Are you okay?" And he's clearly beaten up, and they give them they give them all the same type of clothes to wear.
Right.
When they go see, and it's almost like their prison is like, okay, you got to put on a facade now, and you dare not utter what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all a show. It was all a show. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you a directorial question.
Ooh, ask me.
The film is known for I believe it's 16 or 17-minute scene with the priest. And that's kind of the signature of this movie. That's, if you've seen Hunger, it's probably what you know it for. As a director, what do you think of that scene?
So, I think it's a great scene. And I say that not only as someone who has directed shorts, but I say that as also someone who has directed a play. And it is hard to there's two types of actors. There's stage actors and then there's set actors. And it's a very different ball game. It's not it's not necessarily all the time easy for an actor to transition into that way. Mm-hmm. I personally don't know if Michael Fassbender has any theater background, but even still being predominantly an on-screen actor, I can't, it's a tough transition. And so it seemed like that, even though people go on stage and they perform plays, they probably have anywhere from 3 to 6 months of trainings on that play before being able to recite an hour. Meanwhile, a scene like this, I think I had read that they had practiced it and rehearsed it 14 times. And then when they got onto which, if you do the math, 14 times 17 is, not even a day. So it's not even a day's worth of work in actuality. So the fact that they were able to memorize that and only get it within 4 takes is impeccable. It really is astounding. And I think also too the directing done, I liked that it was very simple, because the directing can be, I don't want to say complicated, but it can be a little bit more like it focused more on still shots with also some varying close-ups. And I thought that really helped create this different sense of this world, that it kind of just felt like everything was out of place, like going from like these extremely still wide shots to then going like the close up of like the cigarette smoking, like of the cigarette, you know, the guard outside is smoking in the snow, like things like that. I think it created this landscape that was felt very off to the human eye. And I think that was a good representation of how things were off in the prison. And when I say off, I don't mean like that it was unattractive. No, it was a beautifully filmed movie. But I really enjoyed that scene. Obviously, the acting is great in that scene. I don't think it's the best point of acting for Fassbender in that, or even in his career.
Right.
But I really do think it shows more of a different face to Fassbender, and almost showing the people not only that he can be, you know, someone like, because I was watching 12 Years a Slave today, someone like how he is in 12 Years a Slave, which is a little bit more of like this ridiculous, outlandish character, to now someone who is a lot more realistic, a lot more calm, and very, very human. Very, very, like when you look at them, it's very, like you can relate.
Yeah.
You can relate. So I thought his performance was fantastic. And directorially, I loved the way it was filmed.
I thought it was definitely an interesting take, you know, just to do it 17 minutes straight. I thought that was definitely an interesting choice. I think their chemistry is great.
Yeah, and the priest.
It definitely seemed very personable and like a friendship. You know, it seemed like a friendship almost. I think this scene also shows how intelligent Sands was. Because the priest doesn't really understand and almost talks him out of going onto a hunger strike when he hears the plan. And they do argue about morality and what's the right way to actually handle this. And he makes this amazing speech about the fight for freedom and how this is him making a peaceful but impactful stand. So I see why the scene does get a lot of credit. Because
and it also it's the biggest mediator to the film.
Right.
And because remember, like you said before, in the beginning, we're not given a lot. We're able to put everything together and put all the pieces together that we were given throughout the film during those 17 minutes.
Very true.
But I think what's most important from this film, obviously that take is a stellar take, and it's an amazing scene. But I really think what it dives down to is Fassbender's transformation. I think that is the pinnacle and the most impressive feature of this entire film. It's how Fassbender went on a medically supervised crash diet.
What does that mean?
I would.
Do they like monitor him
or crash diet?
No,
term?
I know what a crash diet is, but like medically supervised, like what does that mean? Like,
so regularly you would have normally on sets you already have an on-set nurse, but it's something that is like it's medically supervised. That means that probably every day he got on set, his blood was drawn, taken, his levels were read, things like that. Because if it wasn't a medically, supervised diet, then doing a diet like that can kill you. I mean, you saw how frail and how thin he was. So it had to be medically supervised, because it's not like, he'll be fine. He could walk. He probably had issues. He probably, stumbled. He probably had issues of, I think it was just, and of course, especially if you have any type of pre-existing condition too.
Yeah.
If we don't know Fassbender's medical history or anything, but it just had to be entirely monitored, because even if someone being that skinny in real life, that's considered anorexia. To be that thin to where when you move and stuff, you can see all the bones and everything. When you lie down and your ribs rise a lot more than your stomach. even while breathing.
Yeah.
I mean, he had to be medically supervised.
You know what? He deserves more credit for this film then, because that's not an easy choice to sign on to this movie and knowing,
it's not an easy transformation by any sense of the way.
No, not at all. So I hope he somewhere down the road gets more attention for this film. Because like I said, I didn't really hear a lot about it, and I didn't hear a lot about Michael Fassbender's performance, but whenever somebody goes on a diet like that, I do think they deserve some attention. Because that is just extreme. Yeah, that's extreme.
With being on a film set, you have to realize in terms of like craft services and stuff like that, food is everywhere on a film set.
Right.
Food is everywhere around every corner. Like you can smell it in the air. Like there's food everywhere on film set. And obviously it couldn't just be a thing. They probably might have hidden the food from plain sight so that way he wouldn't be tempted, or, you know, because that's just torturous to be that thin and be like, I'm dying over here, I'm starving. Yeah. And then you just see like a whole smorgasbord of food just laid out. But yeah, it's tough. And I mean, obviously people who try to lose weight and stuff like that, but to do crash diets like that, to do like, for example, Matthew McConaughey only ate like peanut butter and apples to get to his thinness and also like from what we learned from Tom Hanks, a lot of the times these actors, if they keep doing this flip flop of losing weight and like these transformations, they can get, you know, bad medical outcomes from it. Like, Tom Hanks stated that he is diabetic because of all of those years of doing those transformations, that it took a toll on his body.
Oh, well, of course. Your body is not made to lose, 60 pounds and gain back 90 and then do it again? Like, no. I commend them very much because it definitely shows you the dedication to the craft.
And so I just found exactly, because I wanted to talk about how exactly how Fassbender did this. And according to Belfast Live, which is where I believe not only Fassbender is from, I know he's from Ireland, but it's also where Bobby Sands and like all of this stuff happened.
Wow.
When they asked him, like, what did you do to get yourself to the part? He starved himself for 10 weeks.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Yeah, he went back home for 10 weeks and just starved for 10 weeks. You're able to survive as long as you drink water. Because you can, I think realistically, you can survive on starvation as long as you have water.
That's insane.
I mean, at some point, you're not going to live forever just starving, but you can last a pretty good amount of time. Probably not more than a year, but don't quote me on that. But I mean, Bobby Sands did it for 66 days.
Right.
So he did it for 10 weeks.
That's crazy. He needs more credit for this film. Absolutely. The discipline, too. I don't think... How many people do you know that are equipped to not eat for 10 weeks when they have access to food?
Oh, my God. I can't imagine, because I'd like to think, if I was ever offered, an extreme role or anything, I could get fit. I could do that. I could, get shredded. I can get thin. But to starve for 10 weeks, and of course, that's why it's medically controlled. That's why it had to be medically controlled. But I could never. I don't think
that there's no mental strength. Oh no, we'd be dead. We'd be dead in 4 days. What do you mean? There's a scene, my favorite, I guess, moment in the movie, speaking of food, is when we see him pretty much dying, and he's tossing and turning in bed, and he's throwing up blood or peeing blood or something, and they're just plates of food that keep passing on right next to him, and he won't eat. And I think that's so powerful. Probably the most powerful image of the movie.
Yeah, and he has his back turned, or he acknowledges it and then just kind of looks away. Like it's so incredibly powerful. Oh, and also another thing too, probably also because I just realized too, with medically induced, he probably was given like vitamins. He probably was given like,
Of
those like
course.
them celebrities get that weird little saline bag that's like magic juice. You know what I'm talking about? Like this, the saline bags.
I think I've heard of them.
But they have like saline bag concoction styles where it's just like
Oh, I've
packed
heard
full
of
of
that. Yeah,
vitamins.
I've heard of that. The
I saw
cocktail.
they it's just usually it's given for like if like celebrities, because I mean you can get it, but it's like $300. I think it's like $300 per treatment or something like that. Not covered by insurance, of course, because I've looked into it because I'm a little sickly girl a lot. So I was like, maybe I can just get one of those celebrity IV bags instead of being sick
Just
for
walk
3
around
weeks.
with it.
But yeah, and so those he probably had those done. He probably was checked. I mean, obviously, starving for 10 weeks, he probably was checked daily.
Of course.
I mean, what are you gonna do? You starving for 10 weeks? You gonna be able to get in your car and drive? I couldn't.
I wonder how you get out of that. Like, I'm sure you can't just like start eating food right away. Like,
I just had read that too. So apparently the doctors were like, let's get you back up to 1,000 calories a day. But because he had not eaten in 10 weeks, when he had started regularly eating food, he had a hard time eating more than 600 calories a day.
oh wow.
Well, your stomach is like a muscle. And like, like when you say, like, the more you eat, the more you're able to. I'm not a doctor, guys. Just because I'm going to pharmacy school, I'm not a doctor.
Dr.
But
Conti.
it's essentially like a muscle where the more you eat, the more you can burn, the more you can chew. And it's just, think of like having a big mouth,
Right.
the more you can stuff in. But if you let that muscle get weak and weak and weak, and you start eating, like if you eat nothing and then all of a sudden you're putting in regular food, it's like, oh, I can't. Like you're going to feel that sensation of fullness way more quicker.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because I knew he couldn't just start scarfing down. I'm sure that would be like a really bad thing to do. I just wasn't sure how you actually start being normal again.
Probably the one thing that he would have had to do, in my opinion, is to start drinking calories, because that would have been the easiest way to start getting back up. Would have been the easiest on his stomach to start drinking in calories, like doing the Ensures, doing protein drinks, things like that.
Do you know how long it took for them to shoot those scenes? Because I imagine they would have to do it quickly, right?
I know the film didn't take that long to film. Like I know it, like there wasn't a lot of filming days. I think it was filmed, I could be wrong, in under a month.
See, that makes sense, because I assume when you have people starving, like just in movies, or on these extreme diets, I assume you have to film it quickly because they're not going to last.
Well, and then also I think too, so it also might have been, I think technically it might have only been like less than 30 filming days. Steve McQueen, if you're out there listening, please help us, correct us. But I think what would have happened was they filmed, what makes sense to me, they filmed all of the scenes with him first. Yeah. All of Fassbender's scenes first. And then while they were filming everything else in between, Fassbender was already back home in LA doing the crash diet. Then there might have been like a few week break, in between everything. Because I don't think everything that was filmed in between would have taken 10 weeks.
Right.
I think it probably had probably took a month or so, maybe. If they only filmed a few days a week. So it probably was, he filmed all his scenes, went out, like healthy scenes.
Yeah.
Went out to LA, starved while they filmed all of the other scenes. And then just in between time, waited for him to come back. And they probably, I would guess they got his scenes done within a week. I mean, there's just I don't think that they would have prolonged the filming of him filming in that condition.
No, I don't think you can. Genuinely, I think think about it. Like, how long can someone do that before they start having some real problems? So what was your favorite? I guess favorite is not a good word, but what was the most powerful image for you in the movie? What, like, really struck you hard?
I think it really is that scene where the guards start getting the riot gear.
That's
it kind of just cemented the way that they viewed, because at the end of the day, like, you know, it could just be like, oh, they just don't like prisoners. But once they all started putting on the riot gear, you kind of had this sense where it's like, no, they view them as the enemy. They view them as the devil themselves.
Yeah.
And they just start dragging and just beating them up. And then they're doing, like I said, and then the fact that to me stood out the most, the fact that they had no regards for, you know, the glove situation.
Yeah.
That to me, I was, and if, like I said, if that is a correct portrayal, then that is insane. Because not only, like, oh man, like, it's just, that is literally like, there's no way you can do that to someone and then not get sick, you know? Especially considering these men hadn't showered.
Exactly.
They were all dirty. They were all gross. They were all sitting in a room filled with feces and bile and vomit and things like that. And then they did that to them. Like, that could have been easily, with just not even the glove change, could have been a death sentence to them.
Exactly. It's very insane. It's very insane.
That was probably the scene that cemented it for me. And obviously that end, the end where, I think one of the most like images that is just like burned into my head is the scene where Bobby is being weighed.
Yeah.
And then you see him turn around and you get the full first image of him as in his starvation, where you just see that he has no, like, in even his face, how sunken in his face was, how frail he looked.
Yeah.
How, and keep in mind, and only you can imagine what Bobby Sands looked like, because at the time Bobby Sands died, Bobby Sands was 27.
Yeah. Very young.
So to imagine and because obviously there are before pictures of Bobby, a healthy young man being reduced to that, it's like, holy crap. Like, and I mean, he did what he had to do, because at the end, after, all the deaths and everything, there was some type of reform. There was some positive outcome from this. Once again, I'm not too sure if it was the British or if it was the Irish government that granted them what they wanted, that met with their demands, which was to be treated more fairly. But the one thing that wasn't taken away was the fact that they did not want to be considered political prisoners. So they were given everything else except that title was still with them. They couldn't get that title taken away.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's kind of like a slap in the face. But at the end of the day, too, I didn't live through the experience. I didn't get to see everything firsthand. So I don't know which side I would have been on. At the end of the day, it just seemed like there was a lot of messed up on both sides.
And honestly, like, if you think about what Bobby Sands did, it was very brave and disciplined. And you have to respect him for fighting for something bigger than himself, because in a lot of those situations, I'm sure we would all pick ourselves. Like,
yeah, and this is a man who was involved in a bombing, and instead of resorting to violence and continuing violence just to get the justice he believed him and the other men deserved, he resorted to them finally doing peaceful protesting.
Absolutely. So I think just on that, it's powerful. Just on that statement, that's how powerful the movie is.
Absolutely. I do think it is a really good film, and I do wish it was talked about more. I do think it's an important film.
Right.
So overall, what would you rate the film?
Okay. I'd have to give it a 7.5.
Okay.
Because it's not a movie I'd ever watch again. It's definitely a one and done for me, because it's very graphic and it's not a very uplifting story. It's important to watch. I think everybody should see it just once. And yeah, just on the entertainment value of it, it's more of an educational film for me. than something I enjoyed, if that makes sense. But it is a fantastic movie on its own. On its own, I give it an 8.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would give it an 8 as well. Because I do think, even though, like like you said, it's one of those films, like I myself, this was my second time watching it, and it was just as tough as the first time watching it. Mm-hmm. I do think it's an important film, not only to its historical context, but I do think it's an important film in terms of film history as well.
Exactly.
I think the transformation that Fassbender did is one to be admired and one to be, looked at. I think it's very, and it shows the limitations that, like, the almost like how he defied the limits of being an actor. Because, usually actors go on these weird diets, but to absolutely starve yourself for 10 weeks is insane, and all for an accurate portrayal of Bobby Sands. And not only that, obviously that 17-minute scene with Bobby Sands talking to the priest. I usually think this could be one of those things where you don't have to watch the whole movie if you want to. I don't think you're going to dislike it. It's just going to be a tough watch. Mm-hmm. But if anything, if you are going to watch any clips, like maybe on YouTube, anything like that, any clips of the movies, then I highly recommend watching the scene with the priest, that whole dialogue, the 17-minute scene, just to see how it was filmed, because it was done really well. And also getting maybe a little bit of a glimpse as to the lengths that Fassbender went for this role, because I do completely think it's admirable.
Absolutely.
And I commend Steve McQueen doing a film like this. I also really commend Steve McQueen really doing a film like this, because I do think it's incredibly important. I don't know, is Steve McQueen English or is he Irish?
I believe he's English. I actually believe
this was his first film. This was his first feature film that he's ever made.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So, I mean, strong lead. Strong lead with that.
I'm pretty sure he's British.
Yeah, he's British.
But
he's British. But
I mean, he's made all of his movies have been pretty much bangers, except for maybe one or two. But
they're really good. And so this week we're also going to be talking about 12 Years a Slave. One of his more recent films, but another Fassbender. He works a lot with Fassbender, I've seen, because he worked with Fassbender on Shame, which I never saw Shame.
I don't want to. I don't know if I could watch. I don't know. I've heard it's very.
I don't know what it entails. I just know once again Fassbender is nude.
Did you see the poster for it?
No, I didn't.
Go see the poster for it, because that should tell you all you need to know. I don't want to say it. On the podcast.
As we speak, I'm looking it up right now.
Because there's a few. So look up if there's one or two, but there's one.
Shame poster. All right, I'm looking this up right now as we speak. I see.
Do you see which one I'm talking about?
Are you talking about the banned Hungarian poster?
Yes. When I first looked up the movie, because I was like, oh, okay, like, what else has he done? That's the first poster that came up to me, and I was like, oh.
Well, because I remember seeing, the sheets.
That's the U.S. one. Yeah.
And then now I see what you're talking about. Oof. Wow. That's interesting.
That's what the movie's about. It's about that. A man struggling with that kind of addiction.
Oh.
And it's from what I understand.
I'm going to put it on our list. We're going to talk about it one day. No, okay, so here's the thing. I was totally thinking off topic, but there's got to be an episode, because there are some movies, which I get, that you either don't want to watch or don't want to talk about. There's got to be an episode where then I just explore the movies and then I just talk about it and you ask me questions as someone who hasn't seen it.
Oh, we could do that. Obviously, I don't know exactly what that movie entails either, so I could just be blowing it out of proportion. But if I watch it, I'm just like, I don't know where to begin. I will definitely be your interviewer. Miss Conti?
Yeah, to be my little interviewer. Well, while I go through the mental anguish of watching Shame, of watching every other Lars von Trier film.
Oh, God. Well, aren't we doing another one soon? We're doing
yes,
Jack.
The house that Jack built.
Oh, I gotta relive
but
that.
You got a few weeks.
All right.
What if, this is Steve McQueen week. What if we did like a Lars week? Would you hate me if I made a Lars week on our schedule?
It's going to get to him, and he's going to hear me. That's what's going to happen, Stephanie.
I thought you were going to say it's going to get to him, and then he's going to get to me. Like, almost like a boogeyman type of thing.
He's going to hear it. If we keep talking about him, someone's going to be like, look, listen to these girls. One of them rips you to shreds the whole time. And then he's going to be like, why? What's wrong?
It's like Beetlejuice. We talk about him too many times, and then he just appears on our podcast.
He's gonna tweet us and be like, filming. What's wrong?
We just hear a man talking to us, and we're like, "Ah!" And he's like, "Hi, I'm here. I'm here to talk about my movies." So there's gonna be that, and then of course, I'm gonna have to have like that week, like the week after. You're gonna have to give me a week off because, like, if I'm gonna watch a movie like Shame. And then I'm going to watch some Lars von Trier films. And then if I'm watching Lars von Trier, I have to watch Paulo, not your husband, Solo.
Steph. Okay.
If I'm going to lose my marbles, I'd rather lose it all in 1 week.
Solo is a hard one. So I was curious. I didn't want to watch the movie, but I watched pretty much a review. A very descriptive review, an analysis of the film, and it is very hard. Not even just the graphicness, the subject matter. The dialogue is very hard. So you might need the vacation before Solo. And then after Solo.
It might be the episode that breaks me. It might be the episode where it's like, you'll have to continue doing the podcast on your own because you'll be like, yeah, Stephanie hasn't been the same since, But I'm willing to do it. I will have like copious amounts of energy drinks just so that way I can get through it.
I will interview about it. I'll be like, so what happens in the movie? I will interview you on Solo.
So it's official. So
at some point, Stephanie's going to have to watch Solo.
So let's just sign it up right now. Let's just get this shit out of the way. So I'm going to review Solo in one whole episode. Solo, Antichrist, Shame, and Nymphomaniac 1 and 2. I'm putting that out there. I'm putting that out there right now. Because I'm a freak. Because I'm a damn freak, Savannah. I don't know what else to say.
You want to review that in one episode. Or
I want to come out of this a legend. I want my grandkids to say, like, Meemaw did this. She endured this.
Why are they calling you Meemaw? Your husband. Your boyfriend's Southern. If you marry him,
oh, he better not listen. He's gonna be like, "Marry me." And I'm gonna be
like, God. Stephanie, if you're up for it, I will be here to interview you. Talk about some points. That's a lot.
It's got to be
though in an episode. I will say.
I think also it's got to be after quarantine because I'm going to need you to hold my hand as I talk in detail about everything. It's going to be a full therapy session. Just realize that. It's going to be a full-fledged therapy session.
Nothing you watch after that. Ooh. No, that's not true. There's a lot more disturbing movies. So I feel like
here's the experiment. I'm going to lock myself in my room and just watch them all back to back.
Don't do that.
And I will carve out a little slot in my door for people to just push mac and cheese through the door. So that way I don't have to leave.
You're going to lose hope in humanity.
Already have. But, so you give it overall back to hunger.
How much we've moved from that. I give it my personal 7.5, but as a film, like a whole and objectively 8. So it's an 8.
Oh, and also, I'm just going to put this out there because I don't know if everyone sticks till the end of the episode. Maybe so, maybe not. I'm going to put this out there. if you, whoever's listening to this, does, and I'm gonna just see if this works. See if anyone's listening. See how if people actually just want to see me suffer. If anyone contributes to our Patreon, whether it be $1 or anything, but if you write the reason is because you want to see, I'm going to call it Freak Week. I review all those movies. Freak Week. If you do the Patreon and if you say I did this because of Freak Week, I will move that week further. I will figure out when that week will be, and I will move it up further on the list.
God, you said Freak Week. I'm like crying.
Freak Week. Oh my god, that's so horrible, but good. It works. It's got a great snazzy title. It's eye-catching, but so many people are gonna think it's the wrong thing.
Okay.
Freak Week.
I counter that, but I counter it with, if anybody contributes, I will watch Shame. But that's it.
That's it? The weaky one? The weakest of the weakest out of all of them?
I feel like that's the only one I'm going to be able to, like, get through. I can't do Antichrist, and I cannot do Solo. I've already subjected myself to the analysis of Solo. So, if someone also gives me a good reason I should watch Nymphomania, because I've heard some, like...
No, you can't do that to your holy Christian peepers, Savannah. You can't do that to yourself.
I'll watch a review. How about that? Because you're right.
Good luck. Yeah, good luck.
I mean, yeah,
go for it. But
with no images, with just analysis, and that's it. I don't need to see everything. I'm okay. You know, I'm okay.
So there you go. If you contribute to our Patreon, that is what you will get from us. Unless you choose one of the higher tiers, then obviously you get more that comes with it. But yeah, if you decide to donate to our Patreon, do anything like that, or even if you just share this video, if you somehow get this video mad views, then yeah.
She's going to have to do Freak Week. So.
Freak Week. Oh my God.
So. All right. I don't know what we got ourselves into. I don't know what you got into. Stephanie,
hold on. I'm just imagining how I'm going to look. Like, if that would be one of our, like, first podcasts where we record our, like, ourselves there, like, you would look pretty. You would look like how you do every day. Healthy, nice makeup. I would look decrepit. I would look like I'm sweating intensely. I would look like I'm going through an exorcism. That is how I'm afraid I'm going to look if we also record that too. That's just a thought I had. I'm like, I'm going to look like a whole train wreck if I come in and if I just start talking those movies.
Let me tell you something. Someone's going to see this, and just for the sick, twisted fun of it, is going to be like, I'm going to donate, and then I'm going to share. So Stephanie has to do Freak Week.
And then we're going to be like, but give us some time. We got to buy the movies, you know? They're going to be like, here's my collection.
Yeah, we're going to get that one.
Send it out to us.
So listen, you're the one watching most of the movies. I might watch Shame. I don't know. Maybe not. But I will interview you.
Look at you. Oh, I'm going to watch Shame.
What do you want? I already told you I told Stephanie when we started this podcast, I will not watch Solo or Antichrist. That was those were my terms.
Yeah, that's in our contract.
So that is your time to shine, all right? That is for you.
How far away have we strayed? Not only from hunger, but from God's light that we were talking about this.
No, you know what? I am not watching. You are. So I'll have a little Bible. I'll bring the Bible if you want.
I think honestly at this point you're gonna have to bring some Vicks too, and then just start throwing gobs of Vicks at me, and then just go sana colita de rana. I think that's the only way I'll be cured. That and some holy water.
I'll read
do what they did in 8.5 and just go to like the river and take like a glass of holy water and then just make me drink it. That's it.
I'll say some prayers before the podcast is just the intro of the podcast is just me praying and saying verses, and then the end.
It's just a mass. It's just a mass. It's just a whole church, like an hour-long mass.
And then
just
the end
praying
is
over
just me like sanitizing you and cleansing you of all the things you saw.
I'm going to freak you out. Oh, I'm going to pull a prank on you. And I'm not going to say it, but I will eventually. I'm going to pull a prank on you during that time. So that way, because even though I'm going to be emotionally scarred, guess what? You're going to come out emotionally scarred too.
That's really mean. But I will have my Bible ready. I will have my Bible ready. My little Christian self is going to be praying a lot during that time. The minute you say it's Freak Week, my little behind.
Be prepared. Be prepared.
Because sure.
This is a joint partnership. I'm not going out of this unscathed. Well, I mean, I will be scathed terribly, but you will go scathed as well. Is that a word? It should be.
I don't know. Well, it's fine.
But okay, that's enough. That's enough talking about it. We're just gonna create some bad juju. Bad juju if we keep talking about it.
Jesus. We gotta start something.
I think this quarantine has finally gotten to us. I feel like we're losing brain cells per podcast.
All right. Well, we should probably wrap this up. You guys heard it here.
Yep. As always, thank you to our homeboy, James. Thank you, James.
For supporting
James, if you're listening to this, if you get to this part, do you want to see me suffer? Let me know. I have you on Twitter. Just shoot me a message. Even we gotta get also Sensei David.
Sensei David, if you're listening to David's opinion, he might have seen the movies.
I'm not even gonna message him. Just Sensei David. If you listen to this part, David, just let me know. Just message me. Just be yes, I agree, or no, I don't want to ruin your little soul. So that those two pending votes will also be significant. But until next time, so we will the next time you hear us, it'll be the belated my birthday episode. So the schedule is going to be today's, which is Hunger. Then you will hear us talk about The Thing. That's a goofy episode. And then you'll hear us talk about 12 Years a Slave to end off. Woo. I almost said Freak Week. Not
yet.
Steve McQueen Week. Director Steve McQueen Week. But until next time, thank you guys so much for listening. Our Patreon link will be down below. And yeah, have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.